the story of Moses, the man who spoke to God. Moses is one of the most iconic figures in religious history, a leader, a prophet, a lawgiver, but how many people truly know his full story? From his miraculous survival as a child to his leadership in freeing the Israelites from Egyptian bondage, Moses' life is packed with incredible moments. But let's face it, even for someone with such extraordinary feats, it's easy to think of Moses as a larger-than-life figure, too perfect, too distant. So, here's a question. What if I told you Moses was just like any other flawed human being, struggling with doubts, fears, and self-worth, but rose above them to become one of the most significant figures in history? Let's go back in time to explore this fascinating life and uncover the man who, despite all odds, spoke directly with God. So let's start the video. Early life from basket to palace. Moses' early life reads like an action-packed adventure story filled with danger, divine intervention, and destiny. Born into a time of great peril for the Israelites, Moses' life was initially defined by a decree from Pharaoh that every Hebrew male child should be killed. In an act of desperation and faith, his mother, Jochebed, placed the infant Moses in a basket made of papyrus and set it afloat on the Nile River. Imagine the fear and hope in her heart as she sent her son downstream, trusting in God's protection. And indeed, God had a plan. Pharaoh's daughter, while bathing in the river, discovered the basket and found the crying child. Struck with compassion, she decided to adopt him, raising Moses as her own within the royal household. The boy who was destined for death now found himself living in the lap of luxury, with all the privileges of Egyptian royalty. But despite being surrounded by wealth and power, Moses never forgot his true heritage. He was raised as a prince in Pharaoh's palace, but his heart remained tethered to his people, the Hebrews, who were living in slavery. He understood his identity, though the royal lifestyle seemed a world apart from the struggles of his birth family. The reluctant hero, a murder, a flight, and a burning bush. Moses' flight from Egypt led him into the vast wilderness of Midian, where he found refuge as a shepherd in the family of Jethro, a priest in the region. His life in exile was a far cry from the grandeur of Pharaoh's palace. Instead of fine robes and royal feasts, Moses now wore the humble garb of a shepherd, tending to flocks and living a quiet, solitary life. Years passed, and Moses settled into the rhythm of life in the wilderness. He married Jethro's daughter Zipporah and had children of his own. But one day, while leading his flock to the far side of the desert, Moses had an encounter that would change the course of history. As he climbed Mount Horeb, he noticed a strange sight, a bush that was ablaze but wasn't consumed by the flames. Now, if you saw a burning bush that wasn't burning away, you'd probably do a double take, right? But for Moses, this wasn't just a curious sight, it was a divine moment. As he drew closer to investigate, God spoke to him from the flames, calling Moses by name and commanding him to return to Egypt to free the Israelites from slavery. Let's be honest, if God spoke to you from a bush on fire, your first instinct might not be to immediately start planning an exodus, right? But Moses wasn't sure what to think. He doubted his own abilities, questioning whether anyone would believe him. The Exodus, plagues, parting seas, and 10 commandments. Now, let's talk about one of the most epic showdowns in history, Moses versus Pharaoh. God instructed Moses to go back to Egypt and demand the release of the Israelites. Pharaoh, however, was stubborn and heartless, and Moses found himself face to face with the mighty ruler of Egypt. What followed were 10 plagues each, more devastating than the last, culminating in the death of Egypt's firstborn. But Pharaoh, hard-hearted as ever, refused to let the people go. So, after the final plague, the Israelites were set free. But the journey to freedom wasn't exactly smooth sailing. As they approached the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army was hot on their heels. In an incredible act of faith, Moses stretched out his hand over the waters, and the sea parted, allowing the Israelites to walk through on dry land. But when Pharaoh's forces tried to follow, the waters came crashing back, drowning the army in a dramatic display of divine power. Imagine that scene: the Israelites standing in awe, watching the sea split before their eyes, knowing that they had just been delivered by God's hand. But the story doesn't stop there. While the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, Moses climbed Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments, which would forever change the way humanity understood morality and law. Leadership and Legacy: A Nation's Guide. Moses' leadership was constantly tested throughout his journey. The Israelites, despite witnessing countless miracles, were quick to grumble and question God's will. Whether it was hunger, thirst, or fear of their enemies, the people constantly turned on Moses, demanding answers. Yet Moses showed incredible patience and perseverance, often interceding on their behalf before God, pleading for mercy and forgiveness. His relationship with God was intimate and personal. The Bible describes Moses as the only person who spoke to God face to face, making his leadership not just a political or military role, but a spiritual one as well. But even with all his faith, Moses faced self-doubt. He questioned his ability to lead, and at times even wondered if he was the right person for the job. However, his unwavering trust in God's direction and his willingness to step up time and again are what defined his leadership. Before his death at the age of 120, Moses viewed the promised land from Mount Nebo, but was not allowed to enter it. He appointed Joshua to succeed him and guide the Israelites into the land that had been promised to them. Even after his death, Moses' legacy lived on in the hearts of his people, with his story becoming a defining element of Jewish, Christian, and Islamic faiths. Moses in modern culture: a continuing influence. Moses' legacy hasn't just been preserved in religious texts, but continues to inspire modern culture. In 2024, Netflix released Testament: The Story of Moses, a dramatic retelling of his life, showcasing the tensions between his divine mission and his human struggles. The show delves into the complexities of Moses' character, portraying him not only as a leader, but as a deeply flawed and conflicted man. This new take on Moses speaks to our modern fascination with seeing historical figures as multidimensional characters, not just icons of religious devotion. Moreover, scholars continue to explore Moses' impact on modern society. Aviva Zornberg's Moses: A Human Life, 2016, offers a profound psychological analysis of Moses, examining his fears, doubts, and the internal conflicts that shaped his leadership. And it's not just academics who are intrigued by Moses. His name appears in pop culture, movies, and literature. From Charlton Heston's portrayal of Moses in the 10 Commandments to animated adaptations like The Prince of Egypt, Moses remains a figure that captures the imagination of millions. His legacy as a prophet, leader, and liberator transcends generations and continues to be reimagined in countless ways, reminding us that even the most extraordinary people were once ordinary. And that's the story of Moses, an epic journey from prince to prophet. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you in the next one.